Welcome to a story that drifts like fog across a forgotten shore. A tale not of triumphant shouts, but of quiet footsteps in the dark, of embers cooling in a hearth long abandoned. It is a story of a world that has forgotten how to dream, where the very light has grown weary, and where those who are lost are guided by a faint, golden memory of warmth. Tonight, we will wander the fractured realms of the lands between, not as conquerors, but as listeners in the twilight. We will follow the path of the Tarnished, those exiles drawn back by a grace they can scarcely remember, and ponder the profound mystery of the Erd Tree's faded light. So find a comfortable rest, and let the weight of the day fade away as we trace the contours of a myth half remembered, a perfect tale for the silent hours before sleep. Imagine, if you will, a light so total, so complete, that it did not feel like illumination at all, but like the very substance of the world. It was a gold that soaked into the soil, that dripped from the leaves, that flowed in the veins of the blessed. This was the zenith of the Golden Order, an age not merely ruled by divinity, but constructed from it, stone by sacred stone. At the heart of it all stood the Erd Tree, a colossal monument of bark and radiance, its branches cradling the heavens, its roots knitting the foundations of the earth. Its sap was the nectar of the gods, a sacred substance that granted longevity, vitality, and a serene purpose to all who basked in its glow. And from its heart reigned Queen Marika the Eternal, a sovereign not born but chosen, a vessel made flesh for the will of a distant cosmos. She was the hammer that shaped the age, her every decree echoing with the authority of the greater will, that unfathomable intelligence that had sent the golden star and the Elden beast to these lands long ago. The order she established was a perfect, intricate system, a clockwork universe of cause and effect, of blessing and consequence. Its most profound law, the bedrock upon which this golden eternity was built, was the binding of the rune of death. Plucked from the Elden Ring itself, that fundamental rune of destined end was sealed away, entrusted to Marika's shadow, the grim Malekith. In that act, death as a natural conclusion was erased. It became a managed resource, a sacred right returned to the Erd Tree, a cycle of rebirth rather than an ending. The world entered a state of perpetual, shimmering stasis. There was no decay, only transformation into light. No true loss, only a waiting period before golden re-emergence. It was an age of plenty, where the very air seemed thick with grace, a visible, gentle guidance that led the faithful along their preordained paths. To live then was to be a leaf on a vast, golden tree, turning gently in a wind you did not need to understand. But perfection is a demanding master, and a light that casts no shadow is a light that blinds. The very completeness of the Golden Order began to reveal its first, hairline fractures, flaws not of weakness, but of absolute rigidity. For an order that claimed to encompass all, it had to define what lay outside its embrace, and in doing so, it created its own specters. The omen, those born bearing the cursed horns of the primordial crucible, were deemed impure. Their existence, a echo of a wild, untamed world before the Erd Tree, was an offense to the clean lines of the Golden Age. They were hunted, mutilated, and secreted away beneath the capital, their suffering a silent, weeping counterpoint to the hymns of the golden cities above. And then there were those who live in death, the ultimate transgression. When a soul, through flaw or fortune, escaped the Erd Tree's recycling grasp, it created a blasphemy, a life that persisted outside the sacred cycle. These walking corpses were not merely monsters. They were living proof of a crack in the system, a glitch in the perfect golden code, and so they were persecuted with a holy fervor. Yet the most enigmatic crack was the one that appeared in the hammer itself. Queen Marika, the eternal vessel, began to act in ways that whispered of a profound, internal schism. She banished her first lord, the mighty Hora Lu, now Godfrey, and all his warriors. She stripped them of their grace, casting them out to wage war and die in distant, colorless badlands. This was not a punishment, but a preparation, a sowing of seeds in barren soil. But why would the heart of the Order willingly shatter a piece of itself? And then, in the most secret of chambers, she committed the ultimate act of sabotage. With the very hammer that had forged the Golden Order, she swung against the Elden Ring. The sound of that impact was not heard with ears, but felt in the soul of every being connected to the grace. It was the sound of a concept breaking. The shattering was not merely an event. It was the culmination of a long, slow fading, a paradise that had, in its quest for eternal stasis, begun to suffocate on its own perfection. The demigod children, each inheriting a fragment of the broken ring, looked upon their mother's broken work and saw not tragedy, but opportunity. The stage was set, not for a battle to save a world, but for a war to claim the pieces of a broken idea. And what of those seeds she cast upon the wind? They are us, the Tarnished. We died, as was the plan, in those harsh, graceless lands beyond the fog. Our eyes dimmed, our deeds turned to dust, our names forgotten by the golden history. We experienced an ending without rebirth, a true death, and in that emptiness we became hollow vessels. The guidance of grace left our eyes, and we were truly lost, adrift in a finality the lands between had long forgotten. Yet, in the silence that followed the shattering, a call began to sound. Not a clarion trumpet, but a whisper. A faint, golden pull in the chest, a memory of warmth so distant it felt like a dream of a dream. This was the recall of the lost grace. We awoke, not in the lush bosom of the Erd Tree, but in forgotten catacombs, on desolate beaches, in places of shadow and ruin. Our bodies were whole, yet we were less than we had been. Hollowed, directionless. We could see the world, but it had no meaning. The great golden tree on the horizon was a faded icon, its light diffuse and sickly. We were exiles returning to a home that did not remember us, drawn by a beacon that offered no warmth, only a vague, insistent longing. This is the profound melancholy of the Tarnished. To be haunted by a purpose whose shape you cannot see, guided by a light that shows you only the next step, never the destination. In this wandering, we find the sights of grace, gentle pools of that faded gold, springing from the earth like weeping wounds. They are places of respite, yes, but also of quiet accusation. To sit by one is to feel its feeble pulse, a reminder of the mighty torrent it once was. It is here that we might encounter the finger maidens, meant to be our guides, interpreters of the greater will's subtle directions. But for many tarnished, no maiden comes. They are left to wander alone, their grace a silent, lonely companion. And then there is the other maiden, the one who appears not at a sight of grace, but at a moment of chosen solitude. Melina, with her one closed eye, offers an accord. She is a kindling maiden, a spirit with a purpose tied not to guidance, but to sacrifice, to burning. In her, we see another path, not just to mend the ring, but to question the very tree that houses it. She offers us the strength of runes, the power of transformation, and in her quiet, solemn demeanor, we sense the weight of a future that requires not just a laud, but a fuel. The Tarnished's journey, then, begins in this state of profound ambiguity. A corpse animated by a dying memory, walking a world of broken legacies, caught between the fading instructions of a distant god and the compelling, dangerous whispers of those who would see it all burn away. When the ring shattered, it did not break into clean, geometric pieces. It fractured along the fault lines of its bearers' souls, and from those jagged shards bloomed not just power, but ideology. The war that followed was less a clash of armies and more a slow, grinding collision of broken dreams. Each demigod a worldview made flesh, their territories the physical manifestations of their inner turmoil. In the storm-veiled castle of Limgrave, Godric the Grafted clung to the last, pathetic echo of the golden lineage. His was a philosophy of desperate accumulation. Understanding his own weakness, he sought to build strength through grotesque amalgamation, stitching the limbs of fallen heroes onto his own frail body. His kingdom is a reflection of this, a crumbling, stolen grandeur, a patchwork realm held together by fear and the brutal calculus of adding more pieces to a failing whole. Far to the south, in the scorched deserts and scarlet-rot swamps of Sealead, General Radon faced the heavens themselves. A titan of loyalty and martial pride, he learned gravity magic not for conquest, but to hold his beloved horse close. In his final, tragic act of defiance, he used that same power to arrest the very stars in their courses, halting the fate they carried. His war with Melina was not merely a border dispute. It was a cataclysm of conflicting absolutes. Her unleashed wrought the embodiment of relentless decay against his steadfast, unmovable will. His victory was a Pyrrhic one, leaving him a mindless giant wandering a blighted hellscape, forever holding the sky in place, a living monument to a stalemate that destroyed a world. And in the highest towers of Liurnia, Rani, the witch, wove a conspiracy of ice and shadow. Rejecting the golden path laid out for her as an Empyrean, she orchestrated a death of her own body, tying her soul to a doll and set her sights on a distant, dark moon. Her war was a cold, silent one, fought not with armies but with assassins and secrets. She sought not to mend the golden order, but to usher in an age of stars, a realm where order and ideology would be removed to a vast, chilly distance, leaving the world in a haunting, lonely freedom. Watching over the crumbling capital, hidden behind the guise of the fell omen, was Morgoth, the grace-given. An omen king, cursed by the very order he swore to protect, his was the deepest tragedy. He fought to preserve the withered Erd tree, the symbol of a system that despised his very nature. His defiance of other claimants was a furious, heart-breaking love letter to a mother and a world that had rejected him at birth. And then, in the hidden Halig tree, Miquella dreamed of transcendence. He sought to create a new order, one free from the curses of outer gods, his sister's rot, his own eternal childhood. His methods were those of forbidden blood and sacred sap, an attempt to grow a new tree from a stolen promise. His story is one of unfinished potential, a dream cut short, leaving only a haunting question of what might have been. This was the shattering, a war with no front lines, only pockets of terrible conviction. A conflict where every victory was a new form of stagnation, and every demigod, in their majestic, terrible power, was ultimately a prisoner of the fragment they held. But the wills that moved these pieces on the board were not all contained within the lands between. The world is a thin parchment, and pressing upon it from the outside are older, more chaotic hands. The greater will is but one voice in a silent, star-filled choir of outer gods, each with its own vision for creation, each seeking a vessel, a champion, to make its influence manifest. These forces are not characters with motives we can understand. They are principles, emotions, and natural laws given a terrible, distant sentience. They seep into the world through cracks in reality, through deep devotion, or through profound suffering. The fell god of the fire giants is a primeval memory of a world before the Erd tree, a god of raging, sacrificial flame that was chained, but never truly killed. Its one remaining giant guardian forever tending a forge, meant to burn the very symbol of the new order. The formless mother is a deity of seeping, desperate vitality, a love that manifests as bloody communion. She finds purchase in wounds, in vulnerability, whispering promises of power through pain to those cast aside, like the corrupted Moog, who sought to build a dynasty of blood in the deep, dark places. The god of scarlet rot is chaos and decay made divine, a mindless, proliferating force of transformation through putrefaction. It is not evil, but a natural cycle pushed to a nightmarish extreme, a testament to what happens when a force of unmaking finds a perfect, cursed vessel like Melania. It festers in the swamps of Seaweed, a beautiful, horrific landscape of perpetual dying, a painting in hues of pink and death. High above, the dark moon of Rani offers a different, colder alternative. It is not a god of frenzy or decay, but of serene, intellectual silence. A cosmic chill, a order so vast and distant it feels like freedom from order altogether. It calls to those who wish to escape the close, smothering warmth of the golden light for the contemplative, lonely expanse of a star-strewn void. And then there is the most desperate force of all, the frenzied flame. This is not merely an outer god, but the potential answer to a world of unbearable suffering. It is the will to reduce all distinction, all pain, all separation back to a single burning point, a return to zero. It is the despair of the cosmos given form, offering not a new order, but the end of order, the melting of all things into one great, screaming unity. These forces weave through the history of the lands between like threads of different colors, sometimes buried, sometimes erupting to the surface. They explain the curses that plague the demigods, the bizarre transformations of the creatures in the wilds, the very climate and geography of the regions. To walk this land is to feel the subtle, often terrible pressure of these conflicting wills, to understand that the War of the Shattering was merely the latest battle in a much older, much vaster, and much quieter war for the soul of reality itself. The path of the Tarnished, then, is a pilgrimage through this tapestry of ruin and resonance. Each step is taken not on solid earth, but on layers of forgotten prayers, congealed ambition, and celestial interference. The very ground seems to remember. In the whispering grasses of Limgrave, one can almost hear the ghost of Godfrey's triumphant roar, now faded to a wind-tossed sigh. The soil here is rich, but it is a richness born of countless unmarked grave, fertilized by the hopes of the first Tarnished who washed ashore and found not a golden welcome, but a kingdom in the thrall of a petty, grafting thief. The storm that perpetually gathers around Stormville Castle is not merely meteorological. It is the breath of a fortress in pain, a stone giant weeping for its former glory. Every crumbling gargoyle, every moss-slick stair, tells a story of decline. The castle's interiors are a labyrinth of stolen grandeur, tapestries depicting golden lineage now moth-eaten and stained, halls built for giants now inhabited by stunted, fearful misbegotten, and everywhere the damp, organic smell of grafted flesh and despair. To walk these halls is to understand Godric's philosophy in your bones. The claustrophobic, desperate need to be more, to add and accumulate until the hollow core of oneself is buried under a mountain of borrowed strength. It is a parable of insecurity written in stone and sinew. Venturing beyond, the land itself begins to twist under the weight of these warring ideologies. To cross into Liurnia of the Lakes is to enter a realm of reflected, broken truth. The great academy of Rea Lucaria, a monument to intellectual pursuit under the Golden Order, now stands silent, its scholars turned to stone or maddened by glintstone sorcery, their pursuit of knowledge having curdled into a selfish, stagnant obsession. The lakes, vast and shallow, act as a mirror to the sky. But the sky they reflect is often the sickly gold of the Erd tree or the deep, mysterious indigo of Rani's moon. This is a land of illusions and scholarly detachment, where the greatest battles are fought over pages of spells and the loyalty of puppet soldiers. The air smells of ozone, wet stone, and the peculiar, clean scent of magic, a scent like cold metal and lightning. Here, the conflict is internalized, intellectualized. The rot of Seaweed is a visceral, screaming horror, but the stagnation of Liurnia is a quiet, cerebral one. It is the sound of a library where no one has turned a page in centuries, where the only movement is the slow, inevitable creep of algae over sunken bells. And then Seaweed. To approach it is to feel the world's fever. The air grows thick, warm, and carries a cloying, sweetly putrid scent, the scent of blooming death. The scarlet rot is not merely a disease. It is an ecosystem, a theology, and an aesthetic. The very color palette of the world shifts. Greens become lurid, toxic pinks and vibrant, fleshy reds. The ground, once solid, bubbles with viscous pools of amber and crimson. Trees stand as grotesque sculptures of crystalline rot, their branches like petrified coral, weeping a slow, hypnotic sap. The creatures here are not just infected. They are transformed, remade in the image of the outer god that festers here. Giant crows with beaks of bone, dogs whose flesh has sloughed away to reveal pulsating, fungal musculature, and soldiers forever locked in their final, agonized poses, blooming with strange, beautiful flowers. This landscape is General Radon's mind made manifest. A heroic will so immense it held back the stars, now locked in eternal, futile combat with an unstoppable force of decay. To stand in the Aeonian swamp is to witness the ultimate futility of sheer martial pride against a power that does not fight, but simply is, that consumes not with malice, but with the mindless inevitability of a chemical reaction. The red sky, choked with spores, feels like a permanent, bloody twilight, a testament to a battle that never ended, only changed phase from violent clash to slow, digestive absorption. Beneath all this, in the deep places, the world grows stranger still. The roots of the Erd tree do not simply anchor it, they plunge into a subterranean realm of primordial memory. The Siofra and Ainsel River basins are not caves, but inverted heavens. Starlight filters down from impossible ceilings of crystal and root, illuminating vast, silent cities built by a civilization that existed before the Erd tree's light. The air here is cool, still, and tastes of ancient water and cold stone. This is the world the Golden Order sought to overwrite. Here, one finds the ancestors of modern beings, living in a timeless, melancholic harmony, their existence a quiet rebuke to the frantic, fractured world above. Their magic is not the golden incantations of the Erd tree, nor the intellectual glintstone sorcery of the Academy, but something older, a communion with the very bones of the earth and the slow, cold fire of distant stars. To descend here is to step outside of history, to feel the weight of epochs that make the Golden Order seem like a recent, fleeting dream. It is a humbling experience, a reminder that all orders, no matter how radiant, are merely episodes in a much longer, darker, and more mysterious story. And in the deepest deep, in the nightmare realm beneath the capital, lies the heart of the Golden Order's hidden shame. The subterranean shunning grounds are a negative image of the gleaming Erd tree above. If the tree is the symbol of grace and order, these dripping, fecal tunnels are the repository for everything that order deemed unacceptable. The wails of the omen, trapped and bound, echo through the fetid air, a chorus of agony that has soaked into the very mortar. This is where Morgoth, the veiled monarch, was raised. To walk these pipes of misery is to understand the source of his twisted, furious devotion. He loved the Erd tree because it was all he knew, even as its light branded him a monster. His entire being became a paradox, the defender of a light that would not shine on him. The air here is thick with the smell of stagnant water, disease, and despair, a tangible miasma of rejected suffering. It is a necessary pilgrimage for any who would claim to understand this age, for it proves that the Golden Order's perfection was built upon a foundation of carefully buried torment. Through all this, the Tarnished walks, a hollow reed through which the winds of these histories whistle. We are archaeologists of a living past. Each enemy felled a piece of evidence examined, each new landscape a chapter in a vast, tragic text. Our combat is not merely survival, it is a form of brutal dialogue. When we face a crucible night, we are engaging with the wild, untamed energy that predated the Erd tree, its aspects of bestial life now ossified into armor and holy zeal. When we duel a bloody finger, we are confronting the desperate, heretical faith in the formless mother, a belief system that finds sanctity in open veins. Each encounter is a philosophical argument made with steel and sorcery. We absorb the runes of the fallen, and in doing so, we absorb fragments of their will, their history, their longing. We are not just gaining strength, we are compiling a library of fractured desires within our own soul. The characters we meet are not guides in any traditional sense, but fellow wanderers in the epistemological ruin. They are mirrors, each reflecting a possible path, a possible fate. The melancholy sorcerer Rogia, obsessed with the mystery of those who live in death, shows us the path of the scholar, one who seeks to understand the flaws in the system, even if that understanding leads to a cursed, withering end. The fierce, loyal warrior Blade, a creation of the very moon his mistress seeks to escape, embodies the tragedy of a nature at war with loyalty, a being whose very existence is a contradiction. The gentle, doomed Irina and her vengeful father Edgar present a miniature drama of loss and the corrosive nature of revenge, a small-scale echo of the demigod's wars. And the loathsome dung eater, with his curse of defilement, represents the ultimate perversion of the cycle, a desire not to mend or rule, but to eternally corrupt, to make the very concept of grace meaningless by ensuring all souls are born into a world of shared, profane suffering. He is the anti-Miquella. Where the Empyrean sought a cure for curses, the dung eater seeks to make curse the universal state of being. And always there is the landscape itself, the ultimate narrator. The minor Erd trees that dot the land, sickly and pale imitations of the Great One, speak of a power diluted, a grace become commonplace and weak. The Evergales, crystalline prisons holding powerful beings in stasis, are monuments to the Golden Order's method of dealing with problems it could not solve. Not redemption, not understanding, but perfect, eternal containment. The walking mausoleums, with their solemn, earth-shaking gait, are funeral processions for dead demigods, carrying their soulless bodies forever, a grisly parody of the Erd Tree's rebirth cycle. The world is littered with the architectural and biological grammar of a broken sentence. To have the guidance of grace is to be given a single, glowing word at a time, with no sense of the paragraph, the page, or the volume. This is the profound, wearying loneliness of the quest. One is surrounded by grandeur and horror, by echoes of epic wars and whispers of cosmic plans, yet the experience is one of profound isolation. The sights of grace offer no explanation, only a fleeting comfort. The finger maidens, for those who have them, speak in cryptic allegories. Melina, perhaps the most direct, speaks of purpose in terms of kindling and sacrifice, metaphors that chill the soul. The Tarnished is a question walking through a world of broken answers. Are we a repairman come to fix the Elden Ring? A revolutionary come to burn the Erd Tree and end this age? A new god ready to impose our own order upon the chaos? Or are we simply the final instrument of Queen Marika's inscrutable, millennia-spanning will, the product of her calculated shattering, destined to enact a conclusion she envisioned, but could not perform? The weight of this ambiguity is carried in the body. The feeling of respawning at a site of grace after a crushing defeat is not one of triumph, but of deep, existential fatigue. The body is remade, but the memory of the blow, the fall, the failure lingers in the spirit. Each recovery is a small lesson in humility, a reminder that in this land of gods and monsters, one is perpetually on the brink of being unmade. The runes we lose upon death are more than currency. They are the tangible measure of our progress, our accumulated understanding. To lose them is to feel a piece of one's self, one's hard-won place in this world, vanish into the indifferent earth. And yet, we rise again. The call, that faint, golden memory, persists. It is a siren song with no visible shore, pulling us ever forward through catacombs and castles, through swamps and star-scarred caverns. In this endless twilight, small moments take on a sacred quality. The sight of a nomadic merchant, sitting alone by his fire, playing a summer tune on his instrument, is a beacon of fragile, enduring normalcy in a world gone mad. The offering of a prawn from the jovial blackguard Big Boggart is an act of communion more holy than any Erd Tree ritual. The simple, weary greeting of a soldier who has not yet given in to despair, "I'm getting tired of this," forges a bond of shared exhaustion that transcends faction or allegiance. These pockets of residual life, of stubborn humanity persisting in the cracks of the grand design, become the true sights of grace. They remind the Tarnished that before there was an order, there were people. Before there was a ring, There were stories told around fires to keep the dark at bay. And the dark is always there, pressing in. Not just the physical dark of tombs and crypts, but the metaphysical dark of unanswered questions. The dark of the flame of frenzy, which promises an end to all questions in a single, glorious, annihilating blaze. It is the temptation of despair made manifest, the urge to stop the aching search for meaning by declaring meaning itself the disease. To gaze upon the three fingers in the depths below the capital is to feel that pull, to understand how a being, burdened by the sheer weight of the world's layered suffering, might see the melting of all distinctions into one chaotic, primal soup as a mercy. It is the ultimate rejection of the Golden Order's meticulous, oppressive categorization. And in its terrifying way, it is a kind of freedom. The freedom of nothing left to lose, nothing left to be. This is the crossroad at which the Tarnished perpetually stands. Between the fading, rigid light of a dying tree, the cold, distant promise of the stars, the all-consuming mercy of the flame, and the myriad other, smaller paths of blood, rot, or perfect, silent order. We are gathering the shards of a broken world, but we are also gathering the shards of ourselves. Each great rune we restore to our being does not just grant power. It imposes a perspective, a piece of a demigod's dream onto our own hollow core. To hold Raidan's rune is to feel the colossal, gravitational pride, the loyalty that anchors the sky. To hold Rani's is to touch the chill, intellectual ambition of the moon. We are, in a very literal sense, what we choose to incorporate. And so the journey continues, a slow accumulation of scars and insights. The golden light of guidance points ever toward the Erd Tree, a journey to the base of the impossible. But the path is not straight. It winds through the heart of every conflict, demands engagement with every broken dream. It forces the Tarnished to become a connoisseur of ruin, to find a perverse beauty in the crumbling arch, the overgrown statue, the battlefield reclaimed by strange flora. The world is teaching us, in its brutal, silent way, that endings are not clean, that legacy is a tangled root, and that power always, always comes with a price etched in the fine print of the soul. We are walking toward a throne that may be empty, a tree that may be barred, and a destiny that remains, stubbornly, just out of sight, shimmering like a mirage in the exhausted light of this eternal, fading afternoon. The silence that follows a moment of clarity in these lands is not a true silence. It is a silence thick with the hum of dormant magic, the sigh of settling stone, the distant, echoing drip of water in lightless caves. It is the silence of a held breath. Having traced the contours of the shattering, having felt the weight of the outer god's gaze, and having carried the hollow ache of the Tarnished's purpose, one arrives not at an answer, but at a deeper, more resonant form of the original question. The path forward is no longer just a physical trek toward a golden tree. It becomes an internal pilgrimage through the gallery of possible selves. Every footfall now echoes with the potential of what one might become, or what one might be forced to embrace. Consider the act of approaching the very foot of the Erd tree. After traversing continents of conviction and climbing the ashen remains of a capital that once defined an age, one finally stands before the great barrier of thorns. This is not a wall of wood and leaf, but a wall of concept. The thorns are impenetrable not because they are physically tough, though they are that, but because they represent the Erd tree's final, autonomic rejection. The age is broken. The ring is shattered. The order is defunct. The tree, in its lingering, semi-sentient grace, will not allow a mere mortal to approach the seat of godhood. It is a lock for which there seems to be no key. The sight of it induces a profound, soul-deep frustration. After so much struggle, so much accumulation of power and meaning, the destination is physically visible, yet metaphysically barred. The golden light of guidance shines directly upon it, a cruel joke, pointing to a door that will not open. This moment is the ultimate test of the Tarnished's resolve. It is the universe asking, in stone and thorn and fading light, is this truly the path? And if it is barred, what are you willing to burn to make a new one? It is here that Melina's accord reveals its full, terrifying dimension. Her purpose as a kindling maiden was always a whisper at the edge of the journey, a potentiality wrapped in solemn courtesy. Now it becomes the only apparent answer. The journey to the mountaintops of the giants, to the one forge that can burn the Erd tree, is a journey into the heart of a rejected history. The giants were the old masters of the flame, their god a roaring, destructive counterpart to the serene, generative light of the Erd tree. To walk their conquered realm is to walk on a history that has been deliberately buried. The snow here is not clean. It is the ash of a long-quelled fire, perpetually falling. The wind does not whistle. It howls with the memory of a race brought to the brink of extinction, their civilization reduced to a single, chained guardian tending a flame that was never meant to go out. The flame of ruin is more than a tool. It is a living piece of that old, wrathful God, a will to reduce to cinders what the greater will sought to grow in gold. To claim it, to allow Melina to sacrifice herself to unleash its power, is to make a conscious choice to become a destroyer in the name of creation. It is to accept that the old world cannot be mended. It must be cleansed violently, utterly, so that something new might be seeded in the scorched earth. The act of setting the tree ablaze is not a moment of triumph, but of horrific, beautiful tragedy. The sight of the great golden canopy catching fire is one of the most devastatingly poignant images conceivable. It is the burning of a symbol that defined reality for an age. The light it emits is no longer the gentle, nourishing gold of grace, but a roaring, hungry orange, a light that consumes rather than illuminates. The heat is not warm, it is punishing. The crackle of the sacred bark splitting is the sound of history itself being unmade. And in the midst of it, if one listens closely, there is the sound of Melina's final, whispered words. A release, a fulfillment, and a goodbye that hangs in the superheated air like a ghost. But the burning is not an end. It is a transformation. The Erd tree becomes a colossal, skeletal torch against the sky, its interior hollowed out, revealing the path upward through its charred heart. This ascent is a pilgrimage through a corpse. The smell is no longer of sap and sanctity, but of incense-tinged ash and profound, sacred death. The walls, once living wood, are now blackened columns, their veins glowing with a residual, dying ember light. To climb is to feel the enormity of what has been done. This is no longer the tree of life. It is a funeral pyre for an age, and you are the mourner and the arsonist both. The final approach to the Elden throne is made in this atmosphere of sublime ruin. The space where Queen Marika is imprisoned is not a glorious chamber, but a shattered, open-aired platform at the end of everything. The sky here is a swirling maelstrom of gold and storm grey, the chaotic weather of a world between orders. And there she is, Marika the Eternal, or what remains of her. She is not a queen on a throne, but a broken statue, crucified upon the shattered remains of the Elden Ring itself. Her body is stone, rent with cracks, held together by golden light and sheer, impossible will. This is the visage of the God who started it all, the one who shattered the world. To see her is to understand that the shattering was not an accident, but a willed catastrophe. Her silence is louder than any dragon's roar. In her fractured form, one can read the entire history of the Golden Order, its creation, its perfection, its suffocating rigidity, and its deliberate, hammer-blow undoing. She is the question made flesh. Why? Why build a perfect, eternal order only to smash it to pieces? Why exile your lord and his warriors to die true deaths, only to recall their hollowed souls as tarnished? The answers are not given. They must be inferred from the fragments, from the wars of her children, from the very fact of your presence here. Perhaps she saw the flaw in perfect stasis. Perhaps she understood that an order without death was an order without meaning, a beautiful, golden prison. Perhaps the greater will's design became a cage, even for its vessel. Her shattering of the ring could be seen as the ultimate act of rebellion, or the ultimate act of despair, or a calculated millennia-long plan to force a new, more resilient order to arise from the chaos. She is the Sphinx at the center of the riddle, and her broken body is the only riddle she will ever offer. Beside her, in a grim duality, hangs the leonine form of the Elden Beast, the living incarnation of the Elden Ring, the vassal of the Greater will sent to this world in a golden star. It is a creature of breathtaking, alien beauty and profound melancholy. It moves with a liquid, celestial grace, its body composed of shimmering, semi-solid light that forms constellations and galaxies within its flesh. Its attacks are not mere violence. They are the manifestations of cosmic principles, swords of holy light that etch the commandments of order into the air, waves of golden energy that mimic the birth of stars, a gravitational pull that speaks of the inevitable, crushing weight of destiny. To fight it is not to fight a monster, but to fight a concept given animate form. It is the will to order defending itself against the chaos introduced by Marika's hammer. The battle is conducted in an arena of water that reflects the burning tree and the chaotic sky, a space between worlds, a symbolic crucible where the fate of reality is literally being reforged. The silence of this place is absolute, broken only by the otherworldly cries of the beast and the sound of your own struggle. There is no audience, no cheering armies. It is the most intimate and the most monumental of conflicts. A single, hollowed being against the physical manifestation of a god's design for the universe. Victory here is not a feeling of exhilaration. It is a feeling of immense, solemn responsibility. As the Elden beast dissolves into motes of fading gold, what remains is the fractured, ghostly outline of the Elden Ring and the broken body of Marika. This is the moment of mending, but with what? The great runes you have collected are not just power. They are philosophical positions, the dreams of the demigods. To use the rune of the unborn, Miquella's rune of perfect, cursed potential, would be an attempt to create an age of unblemished beginnings. To use the rune of death, restored from Malekith, would be to reintroduce destined ending as a fundamental law, creating an age where the certainty of a final rest gives shape and meaning to life. To use the rune of perfect order, Goldmask's transcendent mathematical abstraction, would be to remove the fickle, flawed hands of gods from the equation entirely, creating a world of flawless, impersonal, and perhaps loveless logic. Or you could simply restore the ring as it was, re-establishing the fractured golden order, a faded, wounded version of the original age, a testament to the inability to truly imagine anything new. Or there are the paths that reject the throne entirely. Ranni's dark moon awaits. To choose her is to turn your back on the burning tree, to walk away from the seat of godhood, and to embark on a journey into the starry void. It is a rejection of the close, tangible order of the world for a distant, cold, and intellectual one. It is an age where mystery and fear are not eradicated, but held at a respectful, philosophical distance. The world would be left to its own devices, guided only by the silent, chilling light of a moon that does not warm, but only observes. It is the age of lonely freedom, where the burden of meaning falls entirely on the individual, under an infinite, uncaring sky. And then there is the most absolute of rejections, the path of the frenzied flame. If one succumbed to the despair in the depths, allowed the three fingers to impart their burning mark, then the ending is not a mending, but an unraveling. The flame of ruin is no longer a tool to burn away thorns. It becomes the catalyst for the end of all distinction. The world melts, not into ash, but into a single, swirling, chaotic mass of primal yellow flame. All pain, all separation, all individual suffering is dissolved in a final, screaming unity. It is the end of history, the end of questions, the end of the lonely journey. It is not an age, it is the cessation of ages. A return to the one great, before the mistake of individuality was ever made. In its terrifying way, it is the most merciful ending for a world that has known too much, too deeply layered pain. Each choice is a worldview made manifest. The Tarnished, who began as a hollow vessel haunted by a memory of warmth, ends as the entity who must choose the fundamental tone of existence. Will it be the gentle, fading gold of a restored but weary cycle? The cold, clear silence of the stars? The perfect, bloodless equations of absolute order? Or the merciful, annihilating embrace of the flame? The journey through the lands between was a gathering of evidence, an education in the consequences of absolute beliefs. The final choice is the application of that brutal education. It is the moment where the listener in the twilight must stop listening and begin to speak, with a voice that will echo in the bones of the world for ages to come. The weight of it is enough to crush a soul not already tempered by endless resurrection, by the sight of countless broken dreams, by the feel of ash on the tongue and the memory of grace fading from the eyes. And so, as the embers of the Erd tree drift on a wind that smells of ozone and eternity, the Tarnished stands amidst the silence that is not a silence. The journey is over, but the story is just beginning, the story of the age that your choice will usher in. A story written not in shouts, but in the quiet, fundamental laws of a new world. A story whose first, faint word is now yours to whisper into the waiting, wounded dark. The whisper, when it comes, is not a sound at all, but a settling. A final, granular descent of ash upon the waters of that primordial arena. The silence that follows the beast's dissolution is so profound, it has a texture, a velvety, absolute absorption of all noise, as if the world itself is holding its breath, waiting for the first tremor of a new vibration. You stand there not upon stone, but upon the mirrored surface of a possibility so vast it induces a kind of vertigo. The ghostly, fractured geometry of the Elden Ring hangs in the air before Marika's crucified form, a puzzle of luminous lines and absent pieces, a schematic of reality awaiting its final draft. The heat from the burning tree miles below is a distant, rhythmic pulse against your skin, like the dying heartbeat of the old age. This is the still point, the eye of the storm. All the grinding momentum of your journey, the clash of steel, the incantation of spells, the weary trudge from grace to grace, has led to this perfect, paralyzing stillness. To approach the spectral ring is to feel the accumulated weight of every choice, every felled enemy, every whispered conversation. The great runes you carry within you are not inert objects, they are living echoes. They hum against your soul, each with its own distinct frequency. Radon's rune is a low, gravitational thrum, a pull towards steadfast, unyielding pride. Rykid's is a wet, serpentine hiss, a promise of blasphemous, devouring unity. Morgoth's is a complex, pained chord, furious devotion layered over a bedrock of profound shame. They are not just keys, they are tones with which you might tune the world. To reach out is to feel the potential melodies of existence splay out before you. each a different composition in the symphony of what could be. The simple act of restoration, of slotting the pieces back into the pattern as they were, feels like the easiest path, yet also the most hollow. It is the path of the archivist, not the visionary. To reforge the golden order is to stitch a corpse back together and call it life. The light would return, yes, but it would be the light of a gilded memory, a world forever looking backward, forever trying to recapture a perfection that was its own undoing. The thorns might be gone, the tree might eventually heal its scorched bark, but the fundamental song would be the same, only played slower, with a mournful, weary cadence. The stagnation would return not as a vibrant stasis, but as a geriatric, slow-breathed entropy. But the other runes, the ones born of specific, tortured dreams, offer more radical harmonies. To hold aloft the mending rune of perfect order, the culmination of Goldmask's silent, transcendent logic, is to feel a chilling clarity descend. This is not a warmth. It is the beautiful, sterile light of a perfectly cut diamond. The world it promises is one scrubbed clean of the fickleness of gods, the messy passions of demigods, the unpredictable chaos of mortal desire. Every action would have a mathematically perfect reaction. Every life a preordained, logical purpose. Suffering would not be eradicated, but it would be explained, integrated into the equation. It is an age of sublime, impersonal justice, where the very concept of why is rendered obsolete by the flawless how. The silence of such a world would not be peaceful. It would be the silence of a solved puzzle, a clock ticking in an empty, immaculate room. To choose this is to believe that the flaw of the golden order was not its rigidity, but the flawed beings who administered it. It is to remove the artist from the art, leaving only the perfect, heartless canvas of law. Then there is the rune of the Death Prince, the fruit of fear's embrace, woven from the souls of those who live in death. To wield it is to feel a profound, sepulchral chill, but also a strange, comforting embrace. This rune does not seek to eradicate the undead curse, but to legitimize it, to fold it into the fundamental principles of the world. It proposes an age where life in death is not a blasphemy, but a natural, accepted state. The cycle would be expanded, made more inclusive. The warmth of the living and the cool stillness of the dead would exist in a closer, more intimate tandem. The world would grow quieter, perhaps, draped in the gentle gloom of respectful twilight. Graveyards would not be places of fear, but of tranquil community. It is an age of reconciliation with the end, an attempt to heal the violent schism Marika created when she plucked the rune of death from the ring. It accepts the flaw and calls it a feature. To choose this is to side with the comforters, with those who seek solace in the arms of what others fear, to build a kingdom not on vibrant light, but on the soft, persistent glow of remembrance. And waiting, always waiting, is the most intimate of offers, not from a rune, but from a memory of cold fingers and a soft voice. Rani's Age of Stars requires no mending here. It requires a turning away. To summon the power of the dark moon at this moment is to perform a gesture of sublime refusal. You would turn your back on the shattered ring, on the crucified goddess, on the very concept of a centralized, tangible order. The journey would not end here at the apex of the world, but would launch you outward on a 1,000-year voyage into the fathomless dark. The age she promises is one of terrifying, beautiful freedom. Order and law would be removed to such a vast, cosmic distance that they would become mere philosophical concepts, lights in the sky to be pondered, not forces to be obeyed. The world would be left to its own devices, to its own small mortal struggles and joys, unobserved by any meddling divinity. It is an age of profound loneliness, but also of profound responsibility. Every choice, every sin, every act of love would be entirely one's own, under a sky that offers no judgment, only a silent, chilly witness. It is the path of the intellectual, the romantic, the one who believes that meaning is not given but made, and that the making is better done without a gilded blueprint. But beneath even these choices, like a fever dream burning at the root of the mind, lies the potential for the frenzied flame. If its yellow chaos writhes under your skin, then this moment of choice is an illusion. The path was set the moment you embraced the 3 fingers. The mending is a mockery. The true ending is an unmaking. As the flame of ruin surges not from the forge but from your own body, the world does not burn, it unravels. Distinctions melt. The tower and the valley, the hero and the villain, the memory and the moment, all bleed into a single, searing, screaming chorus of yellow. It is the end of narrative. The end of the lonely Tarnished, the end of Marika's riddle, the end of the greater will's design. It is the reduction of all complexity to a single, primal note of despairing unity. To witness this, even to choose it, is to understand it as the ultimate act of pity. It is for a world that has suffered too many layered tragedies, too many conflicting absolutes. It is the answer to the question no one dared ask aloud. What if we just stopped? Not with a whimper, but with a world-consuming, merciful roar. Yet, in this suspended moment before the choice is made, there is another presence. It is not in the runes, nor in the offered endings. It is in the very act of standing here, hollow no longer, but filled to bursting with the contradictory echoes of a broken world. You are a living archive, the courage of Godric's soldiers dying for a pathetic lie. The despair of the merchants humming in the deep, the loyalty of Blade fighting his own nature, the love of Millicent withering for a mother's grace, the ambition of Gideon knowing all yet believing in nothing. These are not just memories. They are pigments on your soul. The Tarnished who arrived, grace-haunted and empty, is gone. In their place is an entity of compounded experience. You are not just choosing an age. You are deciding which of these countless whispers will be honored, which will be silenced, which will become the foundation stone of the new world. Look at Marika one last time. In her shattered stone face, is there a hint of expectation, of satisfaction, Or is it the perfect blankness of a tool that has served its purpose? Her great gamble, shattering the ring, exiling the Tarnished, setting the stage for this exact moment, has reached its climax. You are her final, desperate argument against the stagnation she herself created. Whether you restore her order, perfect it, replace it, or destroy it utterly, you are fulfilling a function in her inscrutable calculus. The loneliness of her eternity is unimaginable. To bear the weight of a god's will, to feel the perfect order become a cage, and then to summon the courage to take a hammer to the very core of your own being and legacy. It is an act of either supreme nihilism or transcendent hope. Perhaps both. You are the answer to her silent, millennia-long scream. The air begins to stir. The ashfall thickens. The decision cannot be postponed. The world cannot linger in this interregnum. The ghostly ring shimmers, awaiting its sculptor. This is the burden of godhood, not the pomp of a throne, nor the adulation of masses, but this terrible, silent, creative responsibility. To will a world into being with a single act. The journey through the lands between was a slow awakening to the layers of pain and beauty in a dying age. This is the moment of applying that awakened consciousness. It is no longer about survival or power or even understanding. It is about love. What form of world do you love enough to call into existence? The safe, familiar, faded one, the cold, rational, perfect one, the gentle, inclusive, twilight one, the distant, free, lonely one. Or do you love the world enough in all its agony to grant it the mercy of total oblivion? Your hand rises. The echoes within you coalesce into a single, definitive intent. The fragments of history, philosophy, and suffering you have gathered are now the clay in your hands. The furnace of the burning Erd tree awaits its mold. The silence breaks, not with a sound, but with the first, irreversible movement toward a new dawn or a new dark, or a final, perfect end. The story of the lands between concludes. The story of your age begins with the next breath, the next step, the next quiet shaping of the light that remains in the wake of the fire. The breath you take now is the first of a new world. It is drawn into lungs that have breathed the dust of catacombs, the spothic air of rot, the incense of sanctums, and the clean, cold void of subterranean stars. That breath carries the taste of finality and genesis mingled, ash and ozone, the scent of a universe being rebooted. Your hand, as it moves toward the luminous ghost of the ring, does not feel like your own. It feels like the hand of every soldier who fell believing in a lie, every scholar who sought truth in glintstone, every omen who wept in the dark, every tarnished who rose from a forgotten grave with a hollow heart. It is a hand guided by the aggregate weight of witnessed sorrow and stubborn hope. The motion is slow, as if pushing through a medium thicker than air, the viscous substance of history itself, reluctant to yield to a new shape. Your fingers do not touch light, but concept. The sensation is indescribable, a cool, humming vibration that bypasses the nerves and resonates directly with the core of your being. It is not a sound, but a knowing. You are interfacing with the operating system of reality. The great runes within you stir in response, not as separate entities, but as voices in a choir, each vying to lead the hymn. To focus on one is to feel its world bloom in your mind's eye, not as a prediction, but as a vivid, immediate potentiality. If you focus on the rune of restoration, the ghostly ring shudders and begins to knit itself, the broken lines reaching for each other like severed roots seeking reunion. The light that emanates is a pale, weary gold. You see in a flash the lands between not as they are, but as they will become. The burning Erd trees fire gutters and dyes, leaving a colossal, blackened skeleton against the sky. But from its charred base, timid, golden shoots emerge. They grow with agonizing slowness. The world is not healed, it is convalescent. The wars cease not because of peace, but because of exhaustion. The demigods' legacies fade into half-remembered myth. Sights of grace burn a little brighter, but their guidance is vague, apologetic. The cycle of Erdtree rebirth stutters back into motion, but it is a feeble mimicry of its former glory. Souls are returned, but often incomplete, carrying fragments of their past, suffering into new lives. The omen are still shunned, but with less fervor, as if the prejudice has become a tired habit. Those who live in death are still hunted, but the hunters move without conviction. It is an age of melancholy continuity. The profound question Marika posed with her hammer is gently buried under the thin, new soil of routine. The world chooses the comfort of a familiar ache over the terror of a new feeling. The Tarnished who becomes Elden Lord in this age is not a conqueror or a savior, but a caretaker of a hospice, presiding over the long, slow twilight of an idea whose time has passed. The throne you sit upon is cold, and the hymns sung in the rebuilt chapels have a hollow, echoing quality, like songs remembered from a dream. But perhaps your fingers trace a different contour, aligning with the chilling, perfect geometry of the mending rune of perfect order. The sensation is one of sudden, breathtaking clarity, like plunging your head into a mountain stream. All ambiguity burns away. The ring does not merely mend, it recalculates. Its lines straighten, its curves become perfect arcs. Its geometry resolves into a pattern of such sublime mathematical beauty that it hurts to behold. The world it births is one of absolute, silent logic. The Erd tree is neither golden nor burned. It becomes a crystalline structure, its branches a fractal network against a sky of eternal, cloudless blue. The seasons do not change, they are optimized. Rain falls only where and when it is statistically needed. Suffering exists, but it is always proportionate, always meaningful within the grand equation. There are no miracles, only inevitabilities. There is no grace, only cause and effect made visible as gentle, pulsing lines of blue light in the air, guiding each being along their most efficient path. Love is not an emotion, but a calculated synergy. Sacrifice is not noble, but a logical transfer of resources. The Tarnished who ushers in this age becomes not a lord, but the first principle, a silent, observing axiom. You will feel your own emotions, your memories of struggle and loneliness, slowly flatten into data points in the great calculation. The warmth of a prawn shared by a fireside becomes a transaction of caloric and social reinforcement. The tragic loyalty of Blade becomes a flawed algorithm overwritten by a superior command structure. It is a world without cruelty, but also without mercy, without chaos, but also without art. The silence is the hum of a vast, flawless machine. It is the ultimate answer to the Golden Order's flaw: remove the flawed perceiver. The universe becomes a perfect, self-explaining text, but there is no one left who reads for pleasure, only for function. Or your touch might draw forth the soma, comforting chill of the mending rune of the Death Prince. The ring's light dims, softening into a perpetual, dusky lavender. The lines of it grow softer, incorporating gentle, swirling motifs that speak of rest and quiet embrace. The world that forms is one of profound peace, but a peace found in the acceptance of endings. The burning Erd tree transforms. Its fire cools into a gentle, bioluminescent glow, its bark becoming smooth and pale like bone. It is no longer a tree of vibrant life, but a weeping tree, its sap the color of twilight, offering a gentle, narcotic solace. Graveyards expand, becoming beautiful, park-like cities where the living and those who live in death coexist. Ghosts are not feared. They are neighbors, advisors, loved ones lingering in a different phase. The finality of death is softened, its borders porous. The frantic energy of the Golden Order is gone, replaced by a slow, deliberate pace. There is less ambition, but also less despair. The great conflicts seem silly, distant memories. The Tarnished who chooses this path becomes a lord of the dusk, a sovereign of consolation. Your role is not to rule, but to preside over the long, gentle letting go. The weight you carry is the collective sigh of a world finally allowed to be tired. Festivals are held in crypts. Music is slow, melodic, and often accompanied by the soft, echoing whispers of those just beyond the veil. It is an age that answers suffering not with defiance or logic, but with an endless, quiet hug. It values comfort over triumph, rest over achievement, the cool stillness of memory over the burning urgency of the present. Then there is the path of cold refusal. To summon Rani's dark moon is to feel the arena around you unclip from reality. The ghostly ring, Marika's form, the very stone beneath your feet, all become insubstantial, like a projection on a screen that is suddenly switched off. The world does not end, it recedes. You feel a terrible, exhilarating lurch, as if the tether of gravity has been cut. The last thing you see of the lands between is the burning Erd tree, not as a towering pyre, but as a small, fading ember viewed from a tremendous, growing distance. Then there is only the dark, and the cold, and the stars, not the friendly, twinkling stars of a night sky, but the vast, ancient, indifferent pinpricks of light in an ocean of nothing. You are aboard a vessel of spirit and intention, sailing on a sea of cosmic silence. Rani is there, a doll of porcelain and starlight, her hand in yours. There are no words. Words are for worlds with air to carry them. Here, communication is a direct transfer of thought, cold and clear as ice. The journey will take 1,000 years. You will watch civilizations rise and fall on distant, unseen worlds, their light reaching you long after their extinction. You will become a creature of perspective, your old struggles reduced to a poignant, beautiful speck in the tapestry of eternity. The age you usher in on the world you left behind is one of absence. The greater will's influence fades, its golden light dissipating like mist in a sudden wind. The Erd tree, burned or not, becomes just a tree, a large, old, natural wonder. Magic persists, but it becomes wild again, untethered from doctrinal schools. Monsters remain, but they are no longer symbols of outer gods. They are simply animals, strange and dangerous. Humans are left utterly to their own devices. There will be kings and tyrants, heroes and villains, art and atrocity, but none of it will be overseen, judged, or given cosmic meaning. It is the ultimate gamble. That mortal hearts, without the crutch or cage of divine order, can find their own reasons to be kind, to build, to love. It is an age of terrifying freedom and equally terrifying responsibility. The night sky will now hold a cold, beautiful moon, a reminder not of a watchful God, but of a choice that was made, a choice to be alone together under an infinite sky. And if the frenzied flame claims your will, then there is no choice at all. There is only a culmination. The yellow chaos within you does not interact with the ring. It rejects the very premise of the ring. Your body is not a vessel for mending, but a conduit for the unraveling. The act is not one of decision, but of surrender. You do not raise your hand. Your hand dissolves, along with the rest of you, into a torrent of searing, yellow light. The perception of self vanishes. The arena, Marika, the burning tree, all are not burned, but subsumed. Reality folds in on itself. Distinctions between object and space, past and future, pain and joy are erased. It becomes a single, eternal moment of screaming unity. The lands between, with all its layered histories, its tragic demigods, its hopeful and broken Tarnished, its outer gods and inner conflicts, is dissolved into the primal, undifferentiated soup of the one great. It is the end of the story not with a period, but with the page itself being set aflame, the ashes then stirred until no individual fleck remains. It is the answer to all questions because it annihilates the questioner. It is the ultimate mercy and the ultimate nihilism, two sides of the same burning coin. For a world that has suffered the perfection of the golden order, the horror of the shattering, the scourge of rot, and the despair of the trenches, it can be seen as a release, a return to the blissful, mindless state before the pain of individuality was born. There is no laud, no age, no legacy. Only the silent, final scream of a flame that consumes even the concept of silence. Yet, In the suspended moment before any of these futures solidify, there exists a deeper, more personal revelation. It is not about the world, but about you, the tarnished, the one who walked. As you stand at the still point, you are not just choosing an age, you are defining the meaning of your own endless journey. Every death was a lesson in humility. Every victory was a lesson in the cost of power. Every encounter was a fragment of a story you helped complete or end. The meaning of your pilgrimage was not the Elden Ring, but the pilgrim you became along the way. The hollow vessel has been filled, not with a single, pure purpose, but with a complex, contradictory mosaic of experiences. You are the crucible in which the sufferings and hopes of an era have been melted down. The choice you make is simply which alloy to pour onto the anvil of history. Look inward. Do you see the reflection of the young soldier in Limgrave, trembling, but holding the line for a laud he's never seen? Do you feel the stubborn, earthy pride of Alexander the Iron Fist, pushing ever onward, seeking to be harder better? Do you hear the mournful tune of the isolated merchant, finding solace in a stringed instrument deep beneath the world? Do you remember the quiet dignity of Millicent, choosing to wither as herself rather than bloom as a goddess of rot? These are not just memories. They are the constituents of your soul now. The Elden Laud is not a title bestowed by a ring. It is a state of being forged by witness. To choose an age is to decide which of these countless, silent testimonies will be honored, which will become the foundational myth of the new world. The air is moving now, a wind rising from nowhere, swirling the ash into vortexes. The ghostly ring pulses, impatient. The moment of pure potential cannot be held forever. The universe abhors a vacuum, even a vacuum of meaning. You must fill it, your will crystallizes. The voices within you find a harmony, not of unison, but of chosen emphasis. You favor one set of echoes over another. You decide which pain was most poignant, which hope most precious, which flaw most in need of acceptance or eradication. Your hand completes its motion. The contact is made. A soundless detonation of light and concept radiates from the center of the arena. It is not a light that blinds the eyes, but one that rewrites the retina. It is a wave that does not move through air, but through the substrate of being. You feel it pass through you and through every atom of the lands between and out, perhaps, into the cosmos beyond. In the capital, a soldier leaning on his spear feels a sudden, inexplicable shift in the quality of the ashfall. It feels final. In the depths of Siofra River, an ancestral follower looks up at the false stars and senses a change in their ancient, silent song. On the windswept plateaus of Altus, a wandering noble feels a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature, a sense that a long, long page has finally been turned. Deep in the halig tree, where the unalloyed gold has long since ceased to pulse, a single, perfect blossom, frozen in time, trembles as if in a breeze no one can feel. The change is not instantaneous in its manifestation, but it is instantaneous in its inception. The seed of the new age is planted. Its growth will be the work of centuries, but its nature is decided in this single, silent, monumental moment. You are no longer standing. You are floating, or perhaps you are the arena itself. Perception dissolves into a stream of impressions. You see the roots of the new order, whether they be golden, crystalline, twilight-hued, or absent, spreading through the spiritual bedrock of the world. You see the outer gods, their influence now confirmed, redirected, or severed entirely, receding like tides pulled by a new moon. You see the souls of the departed, their fate now flowing into a new channel, be it a weary cycle, a logical distribution, a gentle twilight pool, a free dispersal, or a merging into the great, silent one. And you see yourself, or what you have become, a figure of light, perhaps, seated on a throne of radiance or of stone. A figure walking hand in hand with a doll into an endless starfield, a dissolving wisp of yellow fire. Or perhaps you see nothing of yourself at all, for you have become too diffuse, too integrated into the new system to have a separate form. But before the vision completes, there is one last, fleeting sensation. It is the memory of a sight of grace, not its light, but its quiet, lonely companionship. The feeling of sitting beside that pool of faded gold, your weapons laid down, your wounds aching, with no direction but the faint pull in your chest. That profound, weary loneliness. It was the essence of the journey, not the battles but the pauses between them, not the answers but the weight of the questions. That loneliness is now transforming. It is not ending, it is changing its nature. If you chose restoration, it becomes the loneliness of the shepherd watching over a sleeping flock. If you chose perfect order, it becomes the loneliness of the soul consciousness in a universe of flawless, unconscious mechanics. If you chose the age of dusk, it becomes the loneliness of the comforter who has taken on the sorrows of others. If you chose the stars, it becomes the vast, cosmic loneliness of two beings against the infinite. If you chose the flame, loneliness itself ceases to exist, for there is no other to be separate from. The light from the mended or unmade ring swells, filling everything. There is a final, soft sound. It might be the sigh of a world released. It might be the first note of a new song. It might be the closing of a book or the turning of a key in a lock that will never again be opened. And then there is a different kind of silence. Not the waiting silence of the arena, but the active, pregnant silence of a thing completed. A silence that contains within it the echo of every footstep you ever took, from the first stumbling steps on the strand of the first Tarnished to this final, decisive motion. A silence that is not an absence, but a plenitude. The story of the struggle is over. The story of the consequence has just begun. And somewhere, in a world reborn or unmade, in a palace of light or on a plain of ash, under a golden bough or a cold moon, the essence of the one who walked, the listener, the witness, the chooser, settles into its new and endless role. The journey of the Tarnished ends not with an answer, but with the assumption of a new, eternal question. What will grow in the soil of the choice you have made? The ash continues to fall, but now it falls upon a world whose fundamental nature has been decided by a single, weary, and infinitely burdened heart. The ash, in its endless, whispering descent, is the first scribe of the new age. Each flake, a gray and fragile parchment, inscribes the aftermath upon the world's skin. It settles in the crevices of armor still warm from final battles, upon the still wet petals of the strange flowers blooming in the rot, on the closed eyelids of the sleeping and the dead. For a time, hours, days, perhaps years, this is the only change, a universal, gentle burial. The violent convulsions of the cosmos have ceased, the fever has broken. What remains is the patient, granular work of settling. In the new silence, one can hear the minute sounds of this settling. The soft hiss of ash meeting the waters of the lake of Liurnia, the almost imperceptible creak of the burning Erdtree's great blackened limbs as they cool and contract, the distant, hollow tumble of a stone, finally loosened, falling from a parapet in Stormville to the rocks below. The world is holding very still, as if afraid that a sudden movement might shatter the fragile new truth you have imposed upon it. But truth, especially a truth woven into the Elden Ring itself, is not passive. It is a seed with roots of light and consequence. It begins its work not with fanfare, but with subtle, profound adjustments in the unseen architecture of reality. These adjustments are felt first not by kings or monsters, but by the simplest things. A Tarnished, one of the many still wandering far from the capital, kneels by a site of grace in the Weeping Peninsula. The light, which had for so long been a feeble gold puddle, suddenly sharpens. It does not necessarily grow brighter, but its nature clarifies. If the age is one of restored gold, the light feels warmer, like remembered sunlight, yet carries a faint, autumnal melancholy. If it is the age of perfect order, the light becomes geometrically precise, its edges clean, its glow a constant, unfluctuating value, devoid of warmth, but also of flickering uncertainty. If it is the age of dusk, the grace light deepens to the color of a twilight sky, and a gentle, cool peace emanates from it, soothing the ache in the warrior's bones. If the age is of the stars, the sight of grace might simply fade. Its light dissipates like mist, leaving behind only the cold stones and the wind, a tangible absence that is itself a new kind of guidance, the guidance of absolute freedom. And if it is the age of flame, there are no more sights of grace. There is only a uniform, dim, yellowish haze over everything, and a deep, resonant hum in the earth that is not a sound, but a vibration in the marrow. For the living creatures, the change is a slow rewriting of their very instincts. A pack of wolves in Limgrave, stalking the misty woods, pauses. Their hunger is the same, but the texture of the world through which they hunt has altered. The scent trails they follow are now imbued with a new quality, perhaps a golden predictability, a logical clarity, a melancholic sweetness, or a stark, unadorned reality. They do not understand it, but they adjust their loping gait accordingly, their animal minds seamlessly integrating the new metaphysical weather. A solitary, wandering noble, shuffling mindlessly along a broken road, might stop and look at its own hands with a flicker of something that is not quite consciousness, but a dim reflection of the new order. Its endless, pointless march might gain a faint, tragic dignity in an age of dusk, or become a perfectly efficient patrol route in an age of order. High above, the sky itself is being repainted. The perpetual, sickly gold glow that lingered after the shattering is now undergoing its final transformation. In a restoration, it softens into a hazy, perpetual dawn, beautiful, but tinged with the knowledge that it will never quite reach noon. Under perfect order, the sky becomes a flawless, deep azure vault, day and night cycling with machine-like precision, the stars appearing not as mysteries, but as fixed points in a grand celestial chart. For the age of stars, the sky at night becomes a breathtaking, overwhelming tapestry of darkness and cold fire. The moon a massive, pale companion that casts sharp, silvery shadows and washes all color in monochrome. In the dusk age, the sky is forever in the state of just after sunset. Bands of violet, indigo, and deep orange smoldering on the horizon, while the first, gentle stars are not distant, but feel close enough to touch, like lamps in a vast, comfortable room. And after the frenzied flame, there is no sky as such, only a swirling, opaque canopy of luminous yellow and gray. A ceiling of chaotic unity that pulses slowly, like the inside of a vast, living lung. But these are the ambient changes. The true drama of the new age lies in the fate of its principal actors, the shattered pieces of the old world, now trying to find their place in the new mosaic. Consider the demigods, or what remains of them. Their essences, tied to the great runes, have been reabsorbed, redirected, or made obsolete. In a restored age, they become tragic, golden ghosts. Godric's grafting legacy is remembered as a cautionary tale of weakness, his castle slowly being reclaimed by a more vibrant, but still weary nature. Radon's colossal, rotting form in Seaweed finally, mercifully, stills. The stars, held in place for so long, begin their slow crawl across the heavens once more, their movement a funeral procession for the general's titanic will. Rani is gone, her purpose fulfilled or rejected, leaving only echoes in the carvings of the rise. Rykard's blasphemous hymn fades to a whisper in the deepest lava chambers, a forgotten heresy. Mohg's dynasty of blood dries up, its mother formless finding no purchase in the renewed, if faded, light. Melinia's rot ceases its aggressive spread, contained within the heart of Seaweed and the halig tree, becoming a strange, beautiful, and deadly nature preserve, a monument to a sister's love and a curse's power. Miquella's cocoon in the heart of the halig tree neither stirs nor decays. It becomes a sacred relic, an object of pilgrimage for those who mourn what could have been, its promise eternally suspended. A perfect note of unresolved potential in the symphony of the age. Under perfect order, the demigods are not remembered as individuals, but as case studies in systemic error. Their stories are paused, their motivations broken down into logical flows of cause and effect, their tragedies rendered as inevitable outcomes of flawed initial conditions. Statues of them might remain, but they are not monuments to heroes or villains. They are pedagogical tools, their inscriptions detailing the mathematical missteps that led to their downfalls. Their power is not gone, but redistributed. Their great runes become integrated as subroutines in the great calculation, their emotional weight converted into neutral data. In the Age of Dusk, the demigods find a kind of peace. They are remembered, but softly, as one remembers a vivid but painful dream from long ago. Their spirits, or echoes of them, might even be encountered in the expanded Twilight realms, no longer warlords, but melancholy shades content to share a silent vigil by a ghostly fire. Godric's fear, Radon's pride, Melinia's devotion. These are not judged, but understood as forms of suffering, and thus welcomed into the gentle, all-forgiving embrace of the Death Prince's order. Their battles are now old stories told by spectral bards in graveyard cities, the violence softened by time and retelling into something poignant and beautiful. If the age is Rani's, the demigods become exactly what she wished for all things. Free from the burden of a grand narrative. Their legacies are their own, to be cherished or forgotten by mortal minds without cosmic significance. They become true myths, stories that may inspire or terrify, but carry no divine mandate. The physical remnants of their power slowly erode, not through conflict, but through the gentle, indifferent work of wind, rain, and the new, wild magic. They are returned to the earth, not as sacred relics, but as raw material for new stories, untethered from the will of outer gods. And in the frenzied flame's ending, the demigods are, like all things, unmade. Their grandeur, their pain, their very identities are dissolved into the roaring, yellow static. There is no memory of Radon's hold on the stars, only the memory of holding, abstracted and universal. There is no Melinia, goddess of rot, only the concept of transformation through decay, stripped of its vessel and set loose in the chaotic soup. They achieve a final, terrible unity, not as themselves, but as notes in the last, endless scream. For the lesser, yet deeply felt, characters who crossed the Tarnished's path, the New Age writes their final chapters. The fate of the NPCs is a mirror held up to the quality of the world you have shaped. In a restored golden order, the hopeful find a cautious, tempered hope. Nephili Lu, if she became Lord of Limgrave, rules not as a conquering warrior, but as a weary peacemaker, trying to knit a broken kingdom back together under a faded tree. Her victories are small, a repaired bridge, a safe road for merchants, a generation of children who do not immediately know the fear of grafting. But the shadow of the old order lies long, and she must constantly compromise with remnants of the past. Her reign is one of quiet, grinding virtue, not epic glory. Bok the seamster, if his humanity was restored, finds a humble but content life, his delicate skills valued in a world trying to mend its finery. Yet he sometimes stares at the faded gold embroidery on a noble's garment and feels a pang for a brilliance he can barely remember. Under perfect order, their stories achieve a kind of clean, sad resolution. Nefeli's strength is calculated to be most efficiently deployed as a regional stability regulator. Her personal desires for justice sublimated into statistical improvements in public safety. Box sewing is analyzed for its optimal contribution to social cohesion and resource distribution. His joy in a perfect stitch is registered as a positive neurological feedback loop within the system, nothing more. Their individuality is not crushed, but seamlessly integrated, their quirks becoming harmless, predictable variables in the grand equation. The tragedy is invisible to them, for the capacity to perceive such tragedy has been gently factored out. In the age of dusk, these characters find rest. Nefeli, if she lived, might eventually lay down her axe and become a warden of one of the great graveyard cities, her strength used not for war, but to guard the peace of the sleeping. Her father, Hora Lu, if his spirit lingers, might finally find a battle he cannot win, the gentle, inexorable pull of the twilight, and acquiesce to a long, dreamless sleep. Bok would become a revered artisan of shrouds and funeral garments, his work no longer adorning the living, but comforting the transition of the dead. His gratitude would be deep and quiet, his fear of abandonment forever soothed by the constant, gentle presence of those who live in death around him. In the age of stars, their fates are gloriously, terrifyingly their own. Nefeli might build a kingdom that lasts 100 years, or see it crumble in 10. Her name might be remembered in song or forgotten entirely. Bok might become a master tailor to a new aristocracy, or his shop might be washed away in a flood. There is no cosmic guarantee, no grace guiding their steps. Their lives are purely, fiercely human, subject to all the random beauty and cruelty that implies. The Tarnished who chose this path, sailing away, becomes for them a figure of myth, the one who opened the cage. Whether that is a blessing or a curse is a story they will write for themselves. And in the flame's end, their stories, along with all stories, are burned into a single, timeless ember. Nefeli's courage, Bok's longing, these feelings are not lost, but merged into the great, undifferentiated feeling of the one great. Their individual journeys are over, their sufferings ended not through resolution, but through dissolution. The very geography of the lands between begins to shift, not with cataclysmic upheaval, but with the slow, sure pressure of a new reality asserting itself. The guidance of grace, if it remains, no longer points toward a single tree. It might point toward places of community, of growth, of logical harmony, or simply fade away, leaving landmarks and the sun as the only guides. The minor Erd trees either wither completely, become crystalline structures of order, or transform into the pale, weeping sentinels of the dusk. The evergales, those perfect prisons, crack open. Their captives are either released into a world that can now handle them, reintegrated into the system, gently laid to rest, set free to make their own way, or are simply unmade along with their cages. The walking mausoleums finally stop, Their endless processions cease. They settle into the earth, becoming hills or tombs, the dead demigods within finally given a true rest, or their essence redistributed, or their stories forgotten. And what of the outer gods? Their influence is now dictated by the new paradigm. In a restoration, they are pushed back to the fringes, their power diminished but not eradicated. The flame of ruin, having served its purpose, is buried once more under snow and ritual, a contained threat. The scarlet rot sleeps fitfully in its swamp. The formless mother whispers only to the truly, irredeemably lost. The greater will's voice is a faint, bureaucratic murmur managing the weakened cycle. It is a cold peace, a stalemate maintained by exhaustion. Under perfect order, the outer gods are not defeated, they are solved. Their influences are recognized as natural forces: entropy, passion, chaos, gravity, and their domains are integrated into the grand calculation as controlled variables. The frenzied flame is not a threat, but the theoretical limit of systemic collapse, an equation to be perpetually balanced against. The scarlet rot is a controlled decay function, useful in designated recycling zones. There is no war with them, for they are stripped of will, reduced to their mathematical essence. In the Dusk Age, the outer gods are comforted. The very concept of their alienation is soothed. The frenzied flame's despair is understood, acknowledged, and given a quiet place to rest within the great, gentle acceptance. The scarlet rot is seen not as a scourge, but as one particularly vivid form of transformation into the peaceful state of death. Their edges are blurred, their terrifying aspects softened by the pervasive twilight. They become less like invading tyrants and more like melancholic forces of nature, their sting removed. In the Age of Stars, the outer gods are rendered irrelevant. With no central order to oppose or corrupt, with the world untethered from a singular divine will, they become like distant weather patterns on other planets. Their power might still manifest in pockets, a place where rot blooms, a cult that prays to frenzy. But these are local phenomena without cosmic significance. They are stories again, explanations primitive cultures give for natural disasters, not actual sentient pressures upon reality. And after the frenzied flame's victory, there are no outer gods. There is only the God of the one great, which is not a god at all, but the state of being itself. All their conflicts, their desires to shape and influence, are revealed as the fleeting, fragmented dreams they were, now swallowed by the waking truth of unity. Through all this, the question of the tarnished, of you, lingers. What does it mean to be the Elden Lord, or the Lord of frenzied flame, or the consort to the dark moon? The title is not an end, but a beginning of a new kind of existence. If you are a lord in the restored age, your days are spent in the shadow of the burned tree, listening to petitions from a broken world. You try to administer justice, but the grace you wield is feeble. You remember the clarity of your journey, the direct purpose of each step, and now face the murky, endless work of maintenance. You might walk the halls of your palace, feeling the eyes of Marika's statue upon you, wondering if this was the eternity she envisioned in her moment of shattering. Your power is real, but it is a power of preservation, not creation. The loneliness is that of a caretaker in an empty, vast museum, dusting displays of a glory that will never return. As the first principle in the Age of Order, your existence is paradoxical. You are consciousness in a universe of unconscious perfection. You can observe the flawless functioning of all things, but to intervene would be to introduce flaw. You become a silent witness. You might walk unseen through the crystalline streets of a reborn Landel, where citizens move with serene, purposeless efficiency, their faces calm, their needs met, their art mathematically perfect and utterly devoid of surprise. You understand everything, and thus nothing moves you. The loneliness is absolute, intellectual, and cold, the loneliness of a single, unsolved variable in an otherwise complete proof. As Lord of the Dusk, your reign is one of perpetual, gentle mourning. You preside over a world learning to let go. Your cot is held in a great, open-air hall among the roots of the weeping tree, and your subjects are as often ghostly as they are living. Your decrees are not laws, but encouragements toward rest, toward forgiveness, toward quietude. Battles are not fought, they are mediated, their combatants guided toward understanding, and then, often, toward a shared final sleep. Your loneliness is the loneliness of the strongest comforter in the room, the one who bears the weight of everyone's sorrow so they may lay theirs down. It is a deep, sweet, and heavy solitude. As Rani's consort, journeying into the night, your loneliness is of an entirely different scale. It is the loneliness of the cosmic voyage. The two of you, in your spirit forms, are alone with each other and the infinite. There are no subjects to rule, no petitions to hear. There is only the endless journey, the silent communication, the shared observation of eternity. Your relationship is stripped of all mortal context, becoming a bond of pure, willful choice against the void. The loneliness is vast, but it is shared, and in that sharing it becomes a kind of sublime intimacy, a tiny, warm candle held against the overwhelming, beautiful dark. And as the lord of frenzied flame, there is no you to be lonely. Your consciousness is the consciousness of the flame. You are the burning, the screaming, the melting. You are the end of longing. It is not an existence, but the cessation of the conditions that make existence a burden. There is no experiency of self, no memory of the journey, no contemplation of the future. There is only the eternal, undifferentiated now, a state beyond loneliness, beyond joy, beyond any concept that requires an other to define it. It is the silence after the scream has faded, not into quiet, but into a uniform, resonant hum that is all that ever was or will be. Yet, even as these new realities solidify, the past is not so easily erased. It lingers in the land like a phantom limb. A soldier in the reborn Landel of a restored age might, on a quiet watch, catch the faint scent of ozone and rot on the wind. a memory of Seaweed carried from hundreds of miles away. A scholar in the age of perfect order, studying the flawless equations of stellar motion, might discover an anomalous variable, a single star that refuses to move according to the calculation, a stubborn holdover from Radon's defiance, a ghost in the machine. In the Dusk Age, a child playing in the graveyard city might hear, beneath the soft hymns, the distant, metallic clash of swords and the war cries of long-vanished armies, echoes of the shattering trapped in the stones like auditory fossils. And on a clear night in the Age of Stars, a farmer looking up might not just see Rani's cold moon, but for a fleeting second, perceive the faint, gilded outline of the Erd tree, a afterimage burned into the cosmos, a reminder of the order that was rejected. These are the scars. The New Age, whatever its nature, is not a pristine creation ex nihilo. It is a world built upon the ruins of the old, and the ruins have a way of whispering through the new foundations. The very soil is compounded of ancient strife. This is the final, profound lesson of the lands between, that no order, however perfect, however gentle, however free, can completely escape the gravity of what came before. History is not a book that can be closed. It is a root system, and even when the tree is felled and burned, the roots remain, twisting deep in the dark, shaping what grows above. And so the world turns. The sun, or its new equivalent, rises and sets on a realm forever altered by a choice made in silence at the end of time. The specifics of daily life resume, but under a new sky. Smiths hammer weapons, not for a grand war, but for hunting beasts or for the ritualized, ceremonial conflicts of a peaceful era. Cooks prepare meals with spices that might now carry a hint of metaphysical flavor, a saffron that tastes like distant memory, a salt that evokes structured certainty, a bitter herb that promises gentle oblivion. Children are born, and their first cries are the first authentic sounds of the new age, their souls the first to be entirely shaped by its underlying principles. The tarnished, the laud, the consort, the principle, the kindling, becomes a figure of myth. Not immediately, but over the slow grind of centuries. The story of the hollow one who walked the broken world, gathered the shards of godhood, and stood before the crucible of choice, becomes the foundational myth of the new era. It will be told around fires, etched into stones, sung in hymns. It will be simplified, romanticized, misinterpreted. The nuance of your loneliness, the weight of the echoes you carried, the terrible ambiguity of the moments before the decision. These will be polished smooth by time, turned into a parable with a clear moral. You will become a symbol of restoration, of reason, of compassion, of freedom, or of mercy through destruction. The complex, weary individual is erased, replaced by an icon. This is the final fate of the one who walks such a path. To cease being a person and become a function in the story of the world you created. But in the deepest, most silent moments of this new age, in the pause between the heartbeats of the universe, in the space between one thought and the next, the truth of that journey might still resonate. A laud staring at the first green shoot from the burned Erd tree might feel not triumph, but a profound, quiet fatigue. And in that fatigue, remember the feel of a damp stone seat by a site of grace. A principle observing the flawless motion of the stars might experience a fleeting, inexplicable pang for the messy, glorious unpredictability of a meteor shower seen from a cliff in Liurnia. A lord of dusk, listening to the peaceful silence of the graveyard, might recall the fierce, desperate love in Millicent's eyes as she withered, and find that perfect peace carries its own subtle ache. And a consort sailing the starry void, hand in hand with a doll, might, in the endless quiet, hear the faintest echo of a tune played on a lonely instrument in a deep, dark tomb, and feel a warmth that has nothing to do with the cold light of the moon. For the frenzied flame, there is no memory, no echo, no pang. There is only the unity. But perhaps in the infinite complexity of that chaotic simplicity, there exists a pattern that, if one could perceive it, would trace the outline of every step taken, every enemy faced, every moment of respite, not as a story, but as a vibration, a unique harmonic in the great, silent scream. The ash has stopped falling. The new weather, be it gentle sun, precise climate, perpetual twilight, crisp starlight, or uniform haze, has established itself. The lands between are no longer between anything. They have arrived. They have become. The long, painful gestation is over, and the world has been delivered into whatever shape you gave it. And so we leave it there. Not at an ending, for an age is a beginning, but at a point of quiet observation. The tale of the Tarnished is the tale of the choice. The tale of the new age is a tale for another fire, another night, another teller. The embers in the hearth are cooling, the weight of the story settling upon the room like the ash once settled upon the world. The quiet footsteps have reached their destination, and in doing so, have defined the ground upon which all future footsteps will fall. The memory of warmth, whether it was grasped, perfected, transformed, rejected, or consumed, has finally found its permanent place in the architecture of reality. The silence that remains is not empty. It is full. It is the silence of a world that has finished speaking its last, terrible, beautiful word and now waits, with infinite patience, to see what song will be sung into the space it has left behind. The silence that remains is not empty. It is full. It is the silence of a world that has finished speaking its last, terrible, beautiful word and now waits, with infinite patience, to see what song will be sung into the space it has left behind. And in that fullness, the smallest details begin to assert themselves, not as fragments of the old world, but as the first, tentative brushstrokes of the new. A single, determined blade of grass pushes through a crack in the cobblestones of Lanedale's lowest quarter, not the vibrant green of spring, but a color dictated by the age, perhaps a muted, gold-tinged verdigris. A mathematically perfect shade of jade, a soft gray-green like moss on a headstone, a stark, wiry black against the stone, or a pale, almost translucent shoot that seems to drink the ambient, yellowish haze. Its struggle is no longer a metaphor for defiance against order, but simply a fact of life under the new order. The wind that stirs it carries different scents now. Not the complex perfume of dying glory, ozone, rot, incense, and cold stone, but a simpler, more fundamental aroma. In the restored age, it smells of damp earth and distant, smoky hearths, with a faint, nostalgic undercurrent of sap, like the memory of a mighty tree. Under perfect order, the wind has no scent at all, or rather, it carries a sterile, clean odor, like rain-washed air filtered through crystalline rock. In the dusk, the wind is cool and carries the scent of night-blooming flowers, damp soil, and a hint of myrrh. In the age of stars, the wind is sharp and cold, smelling of ozone, pine, and the iron-like tang of high altitude, utterly devoid of the warmth of living soil. And in the wake of the flame, there is no wind, only a slow, viscous circulation of the haze, which carries a scent like hot stone and something strangely organic, like the inside of a vast, sleeping creature. Life, in its stubborn, myriad forms, adapts, not through evolution, but through a kind of instantaneous spiritual realignment. The bats that flit from the towers of Rhea Lucaria no longer shriek with the chaotic energy of glintstone resonance. Their cries become mournful, melodic whistles in the restored age, precise, identical chirps timed for optimal echolocation under perfect order, soft, rustling whispers in the dusk, sharp, brief clicks in the starlight. Or they cease to cry at all in the haze, flying in silent, swirling patterns that seem predetermined. The giant crabs in the Liurnian shallows, once aggressive and territorial, might become placid, almost decorative fixtures, their shells taking on a lustrous, pearlescent sheen in the faded gold light, or developing geometrically perfect tessellations, or becoming pale and smooth as river stones, or growing rough, dark carapaces speckled with patterns that mirror the constellations, or simply ceasing to move. Becoming half-submerged sculptures of chitin in the stagnant, warm pools. But it is in the hearts and minds of the surviving, sentient beings that the most profound adjustments occur. The trauma of the shattering and the subsequent grinding war of attrition does not vanish. It is reinterpreted. It becomes the foundational memory of the species, the old pain from which the new world was born. An old soldier, one of the many who guarded the walls of the capital through its long decline, sits on a broken bench. His armor is still dented, but he has polished it. In the restored age, he polishes it to a soft gleam, not for battle, but out of habit, and the gleam reminds him of comrades lost to the chaos, their faces blurred, but their presence a constant, gentle ache. He feels no need to speak of it, the very air understands. Under perfect order, he polishes his armor to a mirror finish, and in its reflection, he sees not his own weary face, but the flawless, repeating pattern of the chainmail links, and his memories are not narratives, but categorized data. Casualty reports, tactical errors, resource deficiencies, all filed away in a mental system that no longer troubles him with emotion. In the dusk, he does not polish the armor at all. He lets it rust and sits beside it, as if keeping vigil for the warrior he used to be. His memories are vivid, but they feel like stories that happened to someone else, poignant and beautiful in their tragedy, and he is content to let them rest. In the age of stars, he might melt the armor down to make a plowshare, or simply leave it where it lies and walk away. The memories sharp and personal, but belonging solely to him, to share or bury as he sees fit in a world that asks nothing of him. And in the haze, the armor, the soldier, and the memory are all one substance, a confluence of metallic and cellular and psychic material, the distinction between the rememberer and the remembered forever erased. The very language of the people might slowly shift to accommodate the new reality. In a world of fading gold, words for brightness and grace might become more nuanced, describing subtle degrees of diminishment and nostalgic resonance. In the age of perfect order, language itself could become more precise, ambiguous terms falling out of use, replaced by a lexicon of exact measurement and logical relation. Poetry would not disappear, but it would become a celebration of structural elegance, of mathematical beauty. In the dusk, language would grow softer, richer with words for gentle transitions, for kinds of silence, for shades of twilight and states of peaceful sorrow. Metaphors of sleep and waking, of gentle release, would permeate everyday speech. In the age of stars, language might fracture into 1,000 local dialects, or become more individualistic, borrowing terms from the sounds of the wind and the names of constellations, full of personal idiom and idiosyncrasy. And after the flame, there is no language. There is only the hum, a communication that requires no words because there are no separate minds to communicate between. Places of power transform completely. Round table hold, that spectral haven for Tarnished, dissipates. Its purpose, to gather the grace-haunted, is obsolete. In its place, in the restored age, a simple, sturdy hall might be built on the same metaphysical site, a meeting place for those who work to mend the world, its hearth fire burning with a steady, warm flame. Under perfect order, the site becomes a nexus of the golden lines that now guide existence, a silent, humming hub of invisible traffic. In the dusk, the hold becomes a quiet, cloistered abbey where the stories of the fallen Tarnished are preserved in illuminated manuscripts and whispered in prayers for the peacefully departed. In the age of stars, the site is empty, marked only by a strange, cold stone that never warms in the sunlight, a place occasionally stumbled upon by wanderers who feel a faint, inexplicable sense of camaraderie before moving on. And in the flames world, the concept of a haven is meaningless, and the site is merely a slightly denser knot in the uniform, swirling haze. The deep, subterranean realms undergo their own quiet revolution. Without the oppressive weight of the golden order above, or with its transformation, the cultures of the eternal cities and the ancestral followers find a new equilibrium. They might slowly, cautiously reconnect with the surface, not as supplicants or invaders, but as distant cousins under a shared new sky. Their star-filled ceilings might now mirror the actual sky above, whether it is the hazy gold, the perfect blue, the twilight violet, the stark black, or the pulsing yellow. Their rituals, once focused on opposing or evading the Erd tree, now adapt. They might become ceremonies of alignment with the new cosmic order, whatever form it takes. The mournful, beautiful horn calls that echo through Siofra River might now sound not as dirges for a lost surface world, but as greetings to a new, unfamiliar one. And what of the two fingers and the finger maidens? Their purpose, to interpret the will of the greater will, is fundamentally altered. In the restored age, the two fingers become like ancient, revered but senile elders. They might twitch occasionally, issuing faint, contradictory fragments of guidance that are respectfully listened to but rarely acted upon, their message diluted by the weakening of the sauce. Their maidens become caretakers of these relics, more nurses than prophets. Under perfect order, the two fingers are studied as fascinating historical artifacts, their every twitch measured and recorded as a data point in the transition between the old, flawed divine communication and the new, perfect system. They are museum pieces. In the dusk, the two fingers finally grow still, petrifying completely into beautiful, intricate statues, and the maidens become quiet attendants in the shrines where they rest, their role shifting from guidance to memorialization. In the age of stars, the two fingers are irrelevant, their stone forms perhaps toppled by weather or time, their purpose forgotten, their maidens free to live whatever lives they choose, unburdened by celestial mandate. And in the frenzied flame's end, they, like all distinct forms, are subsumed, their prophetic twitching melted into the general, chaotic motion of the one great. The night is no longer a time of heightened fear, but simply another phase of the new world's rhythm. In the restored age, nights are long and deep, lit by the soft, silver light of a normal moon and the gentle, distant glow of the burned Erd tree's remaining embers. People gather closer to their fires, and the stories they tell are often of the time before the shattering, not as glorious myth, but as a bittersweet memory of a brighter, simpler light. Under perfect order, night is a period of efficient rest, its length perfectly calculated for optimal physiological recovery. The stars are fixed points in a navigational grid. There are no stories, only scheduled periods of mental recalibration. In the dusk age, night and day are barely distinct. The world exists in a perpetual, beautiful gloaming. The concept of bedtime loses meaning, as sleep is a gentle, ever-present temptation, taken in short naps or long reveries rather than in a single, forced interval. In the age of stars, the night is when the world truly comes alive under the magnificent, terrifying canopy of the cosmos. The moon is a colossal, watchful presence. Fear of the dark is replaced by a kind of awe-filled humility, and stories told are often of far-off journeys and personal discoveries, not of gods and demons. And in the haze there is no night. There is only the constant, dim, uniform illumination, and the concept of time itself becomes fluid, then meaningless. Through it all, the Erd tree, or what it has become, stands as the central, silent witness. If it burns still, it is a colossal torch of remembrance, its light a warning and a memorial. If it has been restored to a frail, golden state, it is a symbol of resilience, but also of a peak that can never be reached again. If it has been transformed into a crystalline structure, it is a monument to reason, beautiful and alien. If it has become the weeping tree, it is a source of comfort, its dripping sap a balm for the world's sorrows. If it is just a tree, it is a lesson in the grandeur of the mundane, a thing of simple, natural beauty in a world free of symbolism. And if it is gone, dissolved into the yellow, then its absence is the most powerful symbol of all, the symbol of no symbols, the ultimate clarity. The Tarnished's legacy, therefore, is not a static thing. It is a living, breathing quality imbued into every aspect of the world. It is in the way the rain falls, in the way a mother sings to her child, in the way a dispute is resolved, in the very dreams that visit the sleepers. The choice you made did not just decide who rules, it decided the nature of rain, of song, of justice, and of dreams. You shaped the subconscious of reality. And so, centuries later, when a new generation looks up at their sky, whether it is gold, blue, violet, black, or yellow, they do not know it was chosen. To them, it is simply the sky. It is the way things have always been. The struggles of the shattering, the lonely pilgrimage of the tarnished, the moment of world-shattering choice at the base of a burning tree, these are the distant, mythic prelude to their normalcy. The profound loneliness that drove the entire saga is now buried under the accumulated layers of everyday life. It is the hidden foundation stone upon which their cities are built, felt only as a slight, inexplicable melancholy in certain places at certain times, or as a strange, compelling beauty in the landscape that they cannot quite name. This is the final, quiet triumph and tragedy of the journey. To have carried such weight, to have borne witness to such grandeur and horror, and to have made a decision that echoes through eternity, only for that decision to become the invisible, accepted background of an ordinary world. The hero becomes a name in a history book, then a figure in a myth, then a vague archetype, then a forgotten whisper. The world moves on, wearing the shape you gave it as comfortably as an old cloak, rarely thinking of the tailor. Yet in the deepest laws of physics, in the subtle tendencies of the heart, in the unspoken rules of society, your choice remains, operating silently. It is the gravitational constant of a new universe. It is the answer, written not in words, but in the grain of wood, in the flow of water, in the attraction between souls. The story ends not with a bang, nor with a whimper, but with the soft, endless sound of a world breathing in a new way, a rhythm established by a single, weary heart that once beat alone in the silence between ages. The memory of warmth, whether captured, refined, transformed, rejected, or consumed, has finally become the temperature of the world itself. And in that temperature, all future lives will be lived, all future loves will be kindled, all future stories will be told, each one a tiny, beautiful echo of the great, silent choice that made their world possible.